As a sim racing nerd, I sim race all the time. But unfortunately, sim racing is not the most accessible thing ever. Whether you can't afford a real sim or your PC is an actual potato, there might be a reason you can't use an actual sim. But you know what is very accessible and can probably run on a TI-84 calculator? Roblox.
In life, there's roadblocks. Don't don't let nothing stop you, cause we ain't stopping.
So I went out on the task to see how a real sim like Assetto Corsa Competizione, or Gran Turismo 7 stacked up against Roblox's best. To make everything even, we'll be using a controller because A, Roblox has controller support, B, I unfortunately do not have a steering wheel. First game on the chopping block is Assetto Corsa. While I believe it's highly realistic, it is impossible on a controller. It's highly moddable. I mean, for heck's sake, I can drive my real life car around Pacific highways just in the sim. Like that's insane. I could do things I would never do in my real car. The only really downsides to the sim are its slightly older aero model, it's a little bit less inaccurate weight transfer, and its horrendous tire model. If you think about its tire model like this, you have a 1 point tire model, okay? Just replace your tire with a stick. Every time the tire spins, that stick is moving. You're touching the ground once per revolution. That is how many few times you touch the track. It lacks music, safety, or driver rating, and the UI is genuinely terrible. I think I'd give it a 7 out of 10, just because it's aged a bit. I would call it a 9 out of 10 sim with a 5 out of 10 game, but it has modding capabilities, so a lot of those things get changed. They're just some hard put limitations. Next is Assetto Corsa Competizione, which is the successor to Assetto Corsa. It's like a side cut. Again, it's impossible to use on a controller. You go straight into a barrier every time you try turning. Um, but it's a massive step up from AC. It's a 5 point system for tires, which is so much better. The aero model is actually insane. The graphics are amazing. Hot take, I like the graphics more than Forza and Gran Turismo's. Um, the driver and safety ratings are pretty good, and it works well with multiplayer. I give it an 8 out of 8.5 out of 10. Um, Finally, on the sim side, it's Gran Turismo 7 or GT7, which has a special place in my heart. I used to play GT Sport with my dad before GT7 came out, and when he has free time, I still play it with him. Unfortunately, the Navy has him doing quite a bit of work. GT7 has amazing controller support, but there do seem to be a handful of issues. The tire model is basically non-existent. All it does really is just calculate how the car moves using a set of calculations a instead of a tire model. Um, if you want to see an example, just turn off traction control and drive around. You could pretty much do that in any car and be fine. Uh, Wet weather model seems a little broken because I can take the ideal racing line every time and it'll be faster instead of taking the wet line. I'm on PS4, so it crashes. It's a bit slow and the graphics aren't there, but I'm not going to blame that against Polyphony because the PS4 is limited. Um, the only big thing I have against Gran Turismo 7 are its penalty system and driver rating need to be improved a little bit. The penalty system, I could get slammed into a wall or forced off track and it'll give me the penalty. Like, for example, I went off the track by accident and didn't get a penalty for that. Then some dude runs into me at Mach 5 and then I get a 2 second penalty. That seems to be a bit broken. Um, Also, having a driver rating of B is horrible. Every new player who joins just gets sent straight to driver rating B. So you have some dude who has no idea how to drive just ram into the back of you because that's how things work at turn 1 of Monza. Finally, curbs seem to have a bit of an issue. If you try taking any curb, it's not going to be fast. You just have to avoid them, really. Now, on the Roblox roster, we have Project Track Day, and I'll say it exceeded my expectations. I didn't expect it to be this good. I might need to get some of my friends to drive it with me because their PC can't run real sims. It has some very accurate suspension drop, a amazing tire model, and a good enough aero model. I mean, it's kind of good. It's not enough to tell, really. The only large downside is that, yeah, there is a massive grind to get cars. After my 4 straight hours of driving, I could barely get a Ferrari when I was grinding for a Ferrari. I mean, not that Ferrari, the other. You get what I mean. I put it at a 7 out of 10 because it is exceeding my expectations. Next is Formula Classic, which also blew me away. It's all about older Formula One cars, which is an awesome niche. I actually need a real life sim about this with some insane graphics. It has all the same things as last sim when it comes to the realism. It has pretty accurate crash physics. I mean, my car caught on fire. That's not something a normal sim does. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. I'm gonna make all the Assetto Corsa players angry, but whatever. Finally, it's Car Unlimited Racing, or CUR, which is the best one so far. It's made by 14s, and on top of that, it's only an alpha. I can't wait to see this thing upon full release and might make a breakdown video about that. One thing that is so cool about it that I need other sims to have is you can tell your brake temp, or there's a brake temp in general. I know in Gran Turismo, you can see little glows from the tires, but I don't think that affects my braking distance and stuff. I got my brake temp in the sim up to 600 degrees and I felt how slow the car brakes. It's awesome. This is something Le Mans Ultimate doesn't have, but it needs, because that's an endurance game. That's the whole point of an endurance game, managing your car throughout it. I think it would be so cool. Also, it's the only Roblox sim so far to have a weather system. I drove around, I forget the track, with rain, and I had to actually slow down around different turns more than I would have normally. It's awesome. I'm giving this an 8.5 out of 10. I'm sorry. Real sims need to take some notes from these. But unfortunately, this has shed some light to me. The people who make these sims put so much time into it, and they're so limited. The Roblox engine isn't that good. Their sims are on par with some of the older sims, which is amazing. But they can't make any money. They have a lack of graphics engine, lack of funds, and they can't advertise it well. Only dedicated sim racers would find them. And if they make their sim cost 500 Robux, that means 10 real life dollars. You can get a Assetto Corsa for $5, which has so much stuff, and it's more well known, it's more popular. So, unfortunately, I think that's the big issue with the Roblox racing community. But I'll be honest, it impressed me beyond belief, and I might need to start racing these more than I do other ones because the decent controller support and fact it could run on an actual potato. But you know, I think it's pretty cool. So.